Netanyahu and his war, his endless war, and his desperation to cling on to belligerence. Thomas Friedman, a New York Times columnist, has suggested that he's not only escalating the current war in Gaza for military objectives, but also for political leverage, both domestically and internationally, with US politics playing a crucial role in his assessments. Friedman argues that Netanyahu sees his political survival as intertwined with Donald Trump's potential return to the US presidency. And he claims that Netanyahu is dragging out peace talks and refusing to engage in meaningful discussions on a ceasefire or a two-state solution. And this is perceived as part of a broader strategy to undermine the US Vice President Kamala Harris's election campaign by putting her in a politically impossible situation: either criticize Israel and alienate Jewish voters, or remain silent and risk losing the Arab and Muslim communities in the US, particularly in the battleground states like Michigan. He says, and I quote, "If Netanyahu continues the war in Gaza until total victory, with more civilian casualties, he will force Harris either to publicly criticize him and lose Jewish votes, or bite her tongue and lose Arab and Muslim American votes. This, according to Friedman, is a strategic move by Netanyahu to create political discord in the United States, where Jewish and Arab American voters could play key roles in deciding the next presidential election. For Netanyahu, helping Trump win could solidify his own political standing, given that Trump's strong support for Israel during his presidency is a certainty, including moving the US Embassy, for example, to Jerusalem. Trump is a bold supporter of Israel and ignores what is going on at the moment. I think it's perfectly okay to support Israel, but not to support the present Israeli government and the present Israeli policies, particularly with regard to the war in Gaza. Friedman's theory also ties into larger criticisms of Netanyahu's handling of the conflict, particularly his resistance to previous peace accords. Some sources have suggested that Netanyahu deliberately disrupted ceasefire efforts in July 2023, and again more recently to prolong the conflict for political gain. And his refusal to entertain discussions around a two-state solution, as Friedman notes, reinforces this allegation. And the broader context of these allegations includes Netanyahu's long-standing opposition to peace deals that might require significant territorial concessions or the evacuation of Israeli settlements. Netanyahu's political philosophy centered on security and the defense of Israeli sovereignty. Of course, ironically, it was during his own tenure that Israeli security and sovereignty was broken on October the 7th, runs counter to international efforts at conflict resolution, which sees such concessions as necessary for lasting peace. Netanyahu's critics also point to his connection with the Republican Jewish coalition and his insistence on a total victory over Hamas. And this view is increasingly framed as a zero-sum game that prevents diplomatic efforts, hostage exchanges, or the broader peace process, whether in peacetime or in a state of war, from gaining momentum. The stalemate only further entrenches Israel's occupation and diminishes its international standing, as noted by Friedman, who warned that Israel may become even more isolated diplomatically, with more and more talented Israelis leaving for jobs abroad. Ultimately, whether one agrees with Friedman's take or not, the issue is undeniably complex. Netanyahu's actions are seen by some as pragmatic measures to ensure Israel's security in a volatile region, but others, including Friedman, see his leadership as prioritizing personal and political survival over long-term peace and stability for Israel and its neighbors. I think the issues are certainly complex, but the solution is simple. The solution is Netanyahu's resignation. The tension between political maneuvering and genuine peacekeeping shapes this conflict. and its broader geopolitical ramifications, its broader impact. And the fact that this is taking place at the same time as the Ukraine war is equally concerning because of the parallels that can be drawn between the two, and the parallels which are inappropriately drawn between the two. These are very different situations, and I think sometimes one should move back from the political analysis, and one should look at the moral analysis. One should also look at the efforts, as I say, of Netanyahu in peace as in wartime, and he is consistent, and that, I think, is worrying. Consistency is never necessarily an argument for virtue.